Hey climbers, and welcome back to the Treehouse. My name's Ree and this is the Tarot Tree, and today I'm just going to do a VR back to Mags Black for her wonderful tag she's got going around, and this is my top 5 deep divers. We've done the sharpshooters, those quick clear message decks, and now we're diving a bit deeper and looking into those decks we have in our collections that warrant a bit more reflection, a bit more contemplation. The decks we turn to when we're really ready to do that sort of inner work and sort of spiritual kind of diving, I want to say. And it took a while for me to contemplate what decks I use for this, to be quite honest with you. I knew that I had a few, but I guess the sharpshooters for some reason were easier for me to pick out. And it was a very contemplative exercise, which is quite fitting in and of itself, which is really cool. I realised there's a couple of categories that kind of crop up for this, and I kind of discuss them as we go through. But it was a lot of fun. It was interesting for me to kind of go through my collection and notice these sort of aspects of my decks. Show them a little bit of appreciation for that too, actually. Because some of them definitely have layers, and just shout out and props to all the creators of these wonderful decks that we have that have put so much thought into these creations to help us with our own inner work, with our own kind of spiritual paths, or shadow work, anything of that nature really that kind of warrants that kind of deep diving. Because in a world where sometimes it's not always easy to access kind of things like therapy or mentors that can potentially help us with that, to have decks where we can embark on those journeys and start them ourselves, is an incredible thing to have. So yeah, that's just a side note there. I was going to say excuse the nails, but no, I'm not going to say that. It's, for us that have not shown our faces on the old internet yet, it's kind of the equivalent to, feeling like you have to get dolled up, right? Painting your nails. I've realised, since I started this channel, it's probably the most I've ever painted my nails in my life. And to be honest today, guys, I just needed to give them a break. So, we'll go with the rings, because that's a very authentic thing about me. Rings have always been my thing. And rhyming, it seems too. Oh, another one. So yeah, without further ado, just want to give the props to Mags again. Wonderful tags. Took me a little bit of a while to get onto this, but here we are, and hopefully you enjoy, guys. So let's dive in, why not? So the first deck that I shall be pulling from the depths of my collection is a deck that I kind of got really at the beginning of this year. And that is the Guardian of the Night deck by MJ Cullinane, a really great creator of tarot and oracle decks, I want to say. And I'll let you know why. But first, let's have a look at this beauty, why not? Let's get these out. Oh, everything's going all over the place. Okay. So, this deck, it's an animal deck. There's a lot of animal energy within this. And I find this is where the depth comes into this deck for me, It's not your typical Rider-Waite, though it does have that sort of element, which can make some of the messages clearer. But I have to be honest with you, the reason why it's a deep dive deck is because there's a lot going on in the imagery here. A lot of symbology. Like I said, you have that animal energy there too, which definitely lends itself to, if you want to dive deeper into some meanings of the cards for yourself, you can look up the sort of the sort of relevance of that animal. And in the guidebook, which is a great little guidebook, I have to say, all of her guidebooks. So I've just recently got her 4 hacks of tarot that I'll be speaking about in a later video too, because I feel it can definitely kind of fit that mold too in terms of being a deep diver. It gives you some more food for thought, and I like that about this deck. I have tried it as a sort of sharpshooter, but I really think that it's more of a deck that warrants that contemplation, if I'm honest, just because the cards are quite busy. It is a collage deck, okay? But there's a lot going on. There's a symbolism there, kind of subtle symbolism that you might miss if you don't sit with the card. And that's what I like about this kind of deck. I kind of like this for like a 1 card pool and really look into what this kind of imagery is saying to me. I might off the bat, you know, get sort of intuitive feeling about how it relates to me, but then when I go through the guidebook, it definitely gives me some more food for thought, and I really appreciate that about this deck, you know. It's helping me learn more about kind of power animals, I would say, which is very helpful. Oh gosh, everything's upside down. Sorry guys, I get a bit iffy with that. And God, it was the Hangman as well. That's so funny. Yeah, where was I? Yeah, the book just really gives me some food for thought, and I really appreciate that about it. You know, I feel like it's actually quite a good deck for journaling as well, I have to say. I'm not sure. I don't believe that the is it a deck? Because you know, some decks with their guidebooks come with prompts, and I like that. They're very good kind of decks for deep diving. We might actually get into a few of those, but yeah, I just think it's a wonderful deck. I think she's done so well with it, honestly. But it is a deep diver. Look, it's even got that sort of cosmic / psychedelic almost vibe to it too, doesn't it? You know, trippy animals, kind of weird vivid colours. Yeah. So honestly guys, if you can get your hands on this, I've managed to get my hands on the very last kind of crop of indie decks that she had, which I think, especially if you're within the US, they're well priced for an indie deck, I have to say. But it's become mass market now, guys, and I don't think it's going to be too long of a wait, in all honesty. So yeah, if animals are your thing, if this is your kind of aesthetic collage, and you appreciate a good guidebook, you know, even if it might not be the most lengthy, it definitely gives you some food for thought. Definitely think about this one. That's what I would say to that. So yeah, first deep diver. Do you know what? We've actually got a card that was really interesting to me because I didn't fully understand it first here. So let's speak on that before we shut up shop. This Four of Pentacles. It threw me a little bit because, I don't know if you can see here, you have this fox, right? And it's kind of coveting these rabbits, okay? But there's a lot going on. There's birds at the top, there's another rabbit up the top, and I'm okay. I was like, all right, I get the Four of Pentacles energy there. The fox is hoarding. It's hoarding itself, but what is it, you know, how is that a bad thing? For the fox, surely, you know, it needs to kind of have something there for its survival. But there was like a prompt, you know, within the guidebook that said, while the fox is so busy here trying to kind of keep these rabbits at bay, it's sort of going against its own kind of nature, which is, you know, to be out, to be curious. And I thought that was such an interesting take, you know, such an interesting animal to use for that, actually. And I'm sure I'm not even doing that description justice. It was probably something a bit more profound than that, but that's the gist. And I just thought, I really, really do appreciate that. That's a different outlook of the Four of Pentacles to what I'm used to. So, you see what I mean? It gives you some food for thought, this deck. That's what I like about it. I really do like about it. And I love the aesthetic, so there's no complaints here from me. So yeah, guys. As first out of the depths, we have the Guardian of the Night Tarot. So check it out if you can. Get your hands on it when it comes to mass market. I already saw it kind of, I think pre-orders might be on Amazon. I'm not sure, but you know, give it a go. Next up, no surprises. We have a deck that this channel would not be complete without mentioning. And that is the Blood Moon Tarot. You know, you've all seen this before if you've been on my channel. You know, it's one of my favorite decks. Therefore, this baby's coming out. It's coming out, guys. Coming out, so you better get this deep diving started. Yes, we shall. So, the Blood Moon Tarot. Deep diver, 100%, 100%. There's so much in these cards to go into that it just couldn't not fall into this category. It's also a very good deck for shadow work, and I do use it for that. I can't lie though, it is versatile for me, because I can potentially, no, not potentially, I definitely can use this as a sharpshooter. I don't know if that's because I've worked with it or because it's just a deck that spoke to me even before I bought it and had it in my hands. The imagery is very strong for me for whatever reason. We connect, and I found that such an interesting kind of thread I found throughout these tag videos of other people mentioning like certain decks they believed would be deep divers are actually their sharpshooters and vice versa. So that's a really interesting thing that I've noticed. And yeah, what can I say about this deck? Symbolism is strong. It's not your average Rider-Waite. I'm not the most familiar with Thoth kind of system, so I couldn't really speak to it in terms of that. It could be a mixture of both. I'm just trying to learn the Thoth at the moment. Well, I need to learn it. I'm talking rubbish. I really do need to start to learn it, because I have some decks that actually run on that system. But I digress. Look at this, the Devil card. Look how much we've got going on in this card. You know, and this is, like I said, shadow work deck. Devil is a card that's gonna crop up potentially in your shadow work. It is my tarot card of the year, as I kind of have decided to step into shadow work this year, funnily enough. And this is probably one of my most favorite devil cards that I have, and that's because there's just so much going on. You know, I don't know if you can see. Can he face himself? You're having to face your shadows. He doesn't want to look up. He feels trapped. All that attachment kind of energy, that sort of stagnant energy, that death energy. But then you have the butterflies as well, transformation, new life. And if you can see, I don't know, the key to this mirror is actually on this butterfly's wing. You know, if you're willing to break free of these, you know, attachments or things that are holding us down, we can find our way. You know, it gives you so much in one card, you know, and that's why you have to sit with it. If you're familiar with this, like I said, it can be a sharpshooter if you're familiar with these cards, but in general, this deck, you know, it does warrant some reflection. You know, it does. This Temperance card, you know, you've got that mixture of that sort of lava, fire energy with the water energy. There's sort of contrasting, conflicting sometimes energies, but, you know, trying to keep everything together, temper those emotions. You know, as a musician, it speaks to me with the songs, because there's so much sort of to do with instruments and music in here, and I think that's such a beautiful layer to this deck, a bright layer to it, as a lot of people believe this is quite a dark deck, which I agree, especially within the sword suit. But when you come to the lighter suit, like the song suit, the cup suit, for example, it gives you a lot to kind of to look into in terms of your emotions, like in more of the positive sense as well, which I like, which is different, you know, for a deep dive, because usually when we think of deep dive decks, it's like, oh, it's all going to be, you know, quite tumultuous kind of inner shadow kind of work. But sometimes, you know, having a deck with these light cards that also have a lot of symbolism, etc., or kind of layers to them, has like just as much as a profound sort of ability to make us contemplate certain things that we might have been missing in our lives, like the lighter aspects. And I like that about this deck. I really do. I really, really do. Even here, like you see the 10 of Songs here. What card are we used to seeing a heart on? The 3 of Swords, right? A far, far more kind of, you know, harsher card. But here we have just a completely different energy, you know. And I like that about it. It's a weird card for some, but, you know, I like that energy. The Sun card, one of my favorite Sun cards ever, you know, cultivating that happiness within yourself. It's just like a therapy, this deck. I really think it has such a therapeutic aspect to it for me, which is why I like sitting with it and having those deep dives with it. I actually like sometimes when I'm doing a read and I don't fully understand what that card is saying to me and I have to sit with it for a bit. Like, I can get very frustrated with certain decks that do that to me, but not this one. You know, not this one. 2 of Honey, this is so subtle. Like, you've got one bee, you know, 2 of Pentacles here waiting for this flower that hasn't opened yet, and you've got the other one on this kind of flower that's been fully bloomed. It's like, what choice you're going to make? Who's the kind of victor here? The one who's being patient and waiting when this bud might not open, or the one that's sort of gone to the one that's already been maybe overused? You know, there's so many ways of looking at it, and I love that. even just picking up on the kind of energy of the characters in this deck warrants a lot of contemplation for me. Like, yes, they give off this sort of primal kind of energy within themselves, this King of Pentacles, for example, and you think, okay, like, how does this speak to the King of Pentacles as I know him, basically? You know, all this growth, you know, this sort of kind of radiance, you know, solid, stable. You know, he's almost part of this tree. But look, he looks wise, like he's got some magic to give you, you know, this, it's just, you know, makes you think. And I really appreciate that about this deck. I really, really do. It gets the meanings that we all know down to a T a lot of the time, but it just gives you more layers, you know, like Trek says, you know, like an onion, you know, layers, donkey, layers. And we like that. I completely butchered that quote, but you know what I mean. I hope you know what I mean. The moon, the aspects of, you know, the moon phases and the masks. Oh, the secrecy. You know, the inauthenticity sometimes, you know, having to remove them, get to the bare bones of a matter to get past that fear. Even the kind of aspect of the subconscious here of like the water. I love it. I just need the artist to publish the book that goes alongside this, or I'm going to just have to be printing pages for ages, because I really, you know, I really like physical copies of books, because I feel like the way they've written some of the meanings of these cards was really interesting to me as well, which made it such an interesting deep dive. It was an enjoyable deep dive. When someone writes a guidebook that can actually make you reflect also, you know, that's a big testament to their skill in getting across what they want with a deck. You know, a huge testament. And you know, these are shamans, in my opinion, people that create decks like this. You know, they have something that they're here to teach us, and they've created a tool to help us with our own understanding of ourselves. That's a beautiful thing. So yeah, dream suit. So many layers to the dream suit. I don't know why they're all hiding now. It's like it just wants to show us the light cards. Queen of Dreams. Look at her, that sort of stoic. You know, some of them are very scary and contemplative. Even this Hanged Man guy is pretty scary, right? You know, with this snake wrapped around him, almost whispering in his ear, like, what is the snake telling him? Are you getting the right perspective by staying, you know, in that hangman state? You know, maybe you shouldn't stay in it too long, because maybe then your fears will start whispering to you, or, you know, kind of negative kind of things might start whispering to you. You know, obviously with the snake, with that transformation, you see what I mean? So many elements. Strength card, this card gets me as well. That sort of it always strikes me when I see this card, particularly when I pull it for myself, because you see this figure just, you know, they don't care that their hands are getting bloody. They're splitting that sword, almost like that Two of Swords indecision, and they're going down their own path. And it doesn't matter that someone's got a sword to their throat telling them you better do it my way or the highway. They're having faith, their eyes are closed, and they're like, no, I'm gonna stick to my guns here, you know. I have the strength to get through this, even though you might not want me to. And the sword is dissipating into smoke. How fantastic a strength card is that? You know, when have we seen that? I like that the sword is used within this strength card. Fascinating. So yeah, guys, it's a beautiful, aesthetically pleasing deck, but it's, like I said, so many layers. Back to a dreams card, you know, that five of swords there, that sort of conflict card, you know, it's like on his cape and he's walking away from it. It's fascinating. So anime as well. Reminds me of Inuyasha for some reason. If anyone's familiar with that. Sesshomaru. It really reminds me of him. Oh my god. Yeah, I'm such an anime geek. Oh my goodness, guys. Yeah. Oh, well, okay. I'm going to just go through this whole deck. Oh my goodness. Right, but can we just look at this Emperor card for a second here? When have you seen an Emperor card kind of portrayed in this way, almost like a loving, protective, nurturing, building up, like he's the oak and he has the acorn in his hands and he's protecting his kingdom? We usually get emperors that are like very, like, the kind of more darker aspect of that sort of divine masculine energy, you know, that very like fiery, very stoic, very like it's my way or the highway, very unchanging. You know, we don't really get to see the other good aspects of that. And that's what I appreciate this deck for. We've had a light just go out there somewhere, so I think, did it? Why does everything seem dark all of a sudden? Okay. The High Priestess has come, that's why. But yeah, before I go on way too much, you guys, Blood Moon Tarot. It's a fantastic deck for shadow work, fantastic deck for just contemplating some things and having a word of yourself, for diving deep, essentially, you know. Just a beautiful deck, a beautiful creation, and I would 100% recommend, if you can get your hands on it, to do so. So yeah, I don't know what I'm doing in the cards here, but hey ho. On the Emperor, he wants to end it. Protect this deck at all costs. So next up, guys, we have the Lubango Tarot. Another deck in my arsenal of shadow work decks, I would say. This is why it's in here as a deep diver. Again, like its sort of sister deck, because I do kind of see them as a kind of pairing sometimes, the Blood Moon Tarot and this. For me, it's versatile. I could use it as a sharpshooter as well, but genuinely, I feel like the cards sometimes definitely warrant a bit more contemplation, because there are some here that have a lot of layers to them, like I said, particularly for confronting certain aspects. That's what I like about this deck. It's probably one of my most confronting decks in certain cards, for sure. Hence why I use it for shadow work, particularly in certain aspects of shadow work. I want to say looking at kind of relationships, sort of how I view myself, etc., and kind of things I need to kind of be healing. Yeah, it's a visceral deck, you know, which makes it hard hitting in the sense that you can get an immediate, you get an immediate kind of reaction from quite a few of the cards in this, I want to say. It doesn't pull its punches in that regard. One, because the colouring, you know, kind of the sketchiness of it, it definitely kind of grabs your attention. But it's that deck that says, I've triggered you, have I? Okay, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to look into that a bit deeper now? And if you want to, it invites you to do so. Okay, it has a lot of weird, wacky cards. You know, look at this Temperance card. You know, we do have that sort of angel figure, 1 foot on the in the air, 1 foot in the stream. But she's sort of pouring, you know, things from her own self. You know, she's part of that tempering kind of process, which I like, which is quite different. That's of her own mind, her own emotions, which speaks very well to the sort of temperance, you know, because a lot of the time when we're going out of balance, it is a lot to do with our thought processes, you know, and our emotions. So I like that. It makes you actually contemplate that. What are you contributing to this sort of imbalance in yourself potentially? What is it you need to be getting rid of or kind of looking at? Because she's looking at what she's pouring out of her head herself, you know. She's kind of trying to be the alchemist, trying to see, trying to get that middle ground. I like that. There's a lot of cards here that you don't fully understand off the bat, but with the help of the guidebook, which I think, you know, has some really interesting prompts, I must say. It's a small little guidebook, a little white book, but it genuinely, like, you know, and you can kind of tell the cards that the artist must have maybe liked more, put a bit more effort into, etc., because there's longer passages for them usually. But in general, I do think there's some really cool insights within this card because of the kind of newer meanings or whatever this artist wanted to kind of put across for some. Again, everyone's favorite lovers card, very confronting. But for me, in terms of looking at shadow work and aspects of like relationships, codependency, you know, getting lost in people, you know, feeling very intense, you know, emotions in relationships, particularly romantic ones, it's invaluable to have that within a lover's card. That it's just not, it's all lovey-dovey and everyone's having a romantic scene, you know, with these two very, like, you know, heterosexual kind of figures just standing in a fairy tale somewhere. You know, we need something a bit different, and that's what I like about this deck. Even this 4 of Wands, you know, it speaks kind of like that home, that sort of a marriage, that sort of, you know, stability. It just reminds me of the Shire, you know, like Hobbiton, like, you know, that sort of safety there, that cocoon. But, you know, are you kind of limiting yourself by staying there? Do you want to go off on that adventure, you know? Are you ready to step into that 5 of Wands, that competition, and all of that, you know, to get to your 6 of Wands? Or is your 4 of Wands, is that your place of home? Is that where you're content? You got to decide, you know. I think it's just such an interesting deck. And some of these cards, you know, have been invaluable for my own kind of deep diving and kind of reflecting on my own self, whether that be sort of shadows I need to learn to integrate, kind of aspects of my mental health I could be improving upon, my perspective, you know, things I could be changing to make my life easier for myself, etc. This deck, it's got a very unique and interesting way of doing that. Like I said, it's that hard-hitting, triggering aspect of it, but then it kind of makes you, you know, are you ready to dive deeper into this? You know, look into these cards. And there are light and dark aspects, you know. There's cards that can be read in many different ways. Like we've got this 7 of Swords, usually a card that can be seen as deception, really. Or is it that this person's trying to get rid of someone who's going to cause them aggro down the line? Are they even here to be a threat to this person, or are they there to protect that person? We don't know. What vibe do you get from this card? Obviously, when you pull it and you sit with it, and whatever question you're asking, you're more likely to come up with an answer. So, you know, I like that. It's got this dual nature to it. It's got a dual nature in terms of light and dark cards as well, because I do feel as though this is quite a dark deck, I want to say. Definitely a confronting deck. There's some lighter cards in this that really do speak to that sort of, just go and enjoy your life, you know. It's a sassy deck. Like, you know, sometimes when you need messages, when it doesn't want me to go too deep, it just be like, girl, go get that 3 of Cups, whatever, do that debauchery with your friends, go have a good night out, you know what I mean? I don't know. It's somewhere here, that card. But yeah, like I said, there's an erotic element to this deck, which I think is very good for exploring that sort of aspect of self. So yeah, just very versatile. Very versatile. Even this Empress card, it's such a beautiful card, yeah, because obviously you have that mothering energy, that growing energy. She's there, she's sitting with her child, she's made a kind of tiara and kind of bouquet almost. I don't know if she's got all the petals there or she's cooking, but there's also this child, you know, so there's that nurturing element, but there's this child that's clinging on that almost looks like quite anxious. Like, we don't know who is this child looking up at. That, you know when you see children, I was a child like this, you know, hiding behind my mum's legs and stuff, naturally quite shy and distrusting of strangers. But you know, but confronting that aspect in yourself, because sometimes Empress can go into that more darker aspect of, you know, being overly protective of things, not allowing, you know, maybe your children to grow up, to leave the nest, you know, feeling dependent on that mothering energy, you know, feeling dependent on that nurturing for your kind of own confidence. So this has been an interesting card to pull when doing that sort of work, like mother wound work, attachment work. And you might not necessarily think of the Empress in that regard, but for me, I just think, yeah, there's just layers in the imagery here that if you pay attention, your kind of mind kind of takes you down a different path that you might not have known you had to look into or go down, if that makes sense. I feel like I'm speaking in riddles now, innit? Back to the Hobbit there. But yeah, no. Very interesting deck. And for any of you that can actually, you know, can stomach some of the cards in this, because I know it's not to everyone's taste, and that's more than fair enough. I completely understand that. If you can, and you can get your hands on it, it's worthwhile. I definitely would recommend, because especially for shadow work, especially to do shadow work around relationships, I want to say, or like shadows to do with shame, I want to say as well. Shame, attachment, sex, things of that nature. I think it's very good for that. It's a sassy deck, but it makes you think. Even look, there's 2 of Cups, that sort of attachment here, almost like 2 peas in the pod. They're the same, but yeah, is it all that it's cracked up to be? Are you too attached? Maybe, you know, maybe you need to be more open up to the 3 of Cups. We've all been in those kind of relationships, you know, with whether they be soulmates, karmic partners, counterparts, whatever you want to call them, you know, different kind of people we've come to walk this earth with, you know, that can be very like you know, this is my person. And as beautiful as that can be, it can be kind of limiting too, you know, if you're not willing to open the gates to others. And I've definitely been in that situation. I'm sure a lot of us probably have at some point. So yeah, we'll end on this Six of Cups, which is, you know, a very personal card to this artist, I want to say, on reading what they had to say about it within this deck, but also something that I find very interesting for me. We look at the Six of Cups, you know, a lot of the time is almost like things from the past, nostalgia, sentimentality, you know, which can be a lovely thing, you know, it can be good to get back to that, but at the same time, it can be, well, take off those rose-tinted glasses, was it as good as it actually seemed to be? Or maybe some of us didn't have the greatest, you know, pasts in that regard, you know, and it's more of a prison, you know, a prison of that past there, with that being in that glass, that sort of countdown with the chalk. You know, contemplate these things with these cards. Look at their darker aspects. You know, each card has the ability to have a dark and a light attribute. So let's make the best of that system. You know, especially in the Rider-Waite. Why not? So yeah, that is the Lubango Tarot. A definite deep diver for me. Okay, so next up we have the Witch's Wisdom Tarot. Honestly, quite a recent acquisition for me, but a deck that's been speaking to me for ages. Every time I see this deck on someone else's channel, it draws me in. And there's a very good reason for that. It's not only just because it's got wonderful artwork. I feel like it was calling to me because obviously there was new messages within, which I kind of deem a newer system that, you know, messages for me. I might have actually put this in, yes, I have put this in order just because I am basically doing a bit of a deep dive with it at the moment myself. Our lovely Fool is in frame. So basically, I don't know if you can see a sort of pattern arising here in terms of the sort of categories that have cropped up for this deep dive. We've had some decks that I think, you know, we use for shadow work, I've mentioned. You know, deep dive decks definitely are very good for that sort of thing, you know, shadow work, path working, you know, almost therapeutic. We've had decks that have a lot of symbology, rich in symbology, layers. And now we're moving into the realm of a deck that has its own system and almost its own meanings to these cards, which means it definitely warrants some study and deep diving off the bat. And I feel like for some people this is a bit of an issue for them with this deck, as in, I know some people are not overly fond of decks that change the kind of system of tarot. I think particularly this one, which I find fascinating, I actually think is really cool, is you kind of start off with the Fool and then you go straight to the World, you know, rather than it, you know, it's in reverse. And I like that. I think that's very, very different. That in and of itself makes me question things, and it actually fits a bit more with how I view things sometimes, you know. It's that cyclical, what the hell is the word I'm looking for? Cyclical nature. What's the word? It goes in cycles. Okay, that's what I mean. Life goes in cycles, and sometimes we're not just this fresh, doe-eyed sort of fool that has no history. Once we get past childhood and teenagehood, none of us are that. We all have baggage in history, and yet we all have to set out on these things again, even though we've dealt with whatever pain, or, you know, it could not even just be pain, but just outgrowing a place. And that stands testament a lot to that strong, you know, that's a strong energy. The Fool actually has a strong energy when you think about that, to kind of pick yourself up and go on. It's not always this naive energy. And I think a lot of us can relate to that. I definitely can. That's as well why I think this is kind of good for kind of work that, because potentially I haven't really used it for shadow work yet, but I can see that it could have its place there actually. I like how they're renamed as well. Like, obviously off the bat, it might be a bit tricky for some of us, but with this wonderful guidebook, you know, it will show us the way. You know, it doesn't leave you in the lurch. That's what I like about it. I absolutely adore this artwork. I think I already spoke about it before in sort of decks I wish existed. I would love this artist, which is Danielle Barlow, if I'm correct, to create a sort of tree deck for me. Maze. that's fascinating, you know. The Tower, that's exactly what it feels like, you know, when you're going through those moments. Like, how am I going to navigate this? I don't know where I'm going. I love some of the choices. Ancestor, it's got that very like it's got a druid vibe, it's got a very ancestral vibe, you know. It is the witch's wisdom, very yeah, obviously so much botanical energy in this as well. Healing. It's just such a beautiful deck. And like I said, because, you know, they're renamed, you know, the system is redone in some aspects, you know, some of the cards are kind of given, you know, if not completely different meanings, I would say just a different kind of spin on things, you know. It's not even a spin, it's just a really different outlook, and I appreciate that. I don't mind having decks that actually make me think about cards in different ways. You know, yes, they take some work to learn, 100%, but I think they're worthwhile. I really do. Here we are, we're going to get to the card that always kept drawing me in because it keeps cropping up for me. This Two of Air. You know, I kept seeing it and I was like, what is this about? You know, even the fact that it's named air, I love that the elemental energy in this is really strong. It's very strong in this deck, I would say. And even the card meaning speak to it more in that way, because this talks about, you know, breathing. You can even see that this tree split in two, where you usually see the Two of Swords almost like an indecisive energy. This is like about the lungs and sort of breath work, if I remember rightly. Let's have a look. You know, it speaks about it's time to let go, trust, and allow yourself to be vulnerable. Breathe, and life will breathe with you. It's sort of, it speaks to that kind of counsel of making a choice, you know, with the Two of Swords. You know, don't stay stuck in that energy. But it brings it to nature, brings it to breath, life itself. And I just appreciate that so much of this card, because it kept coming up for me, and no surprise, I'm someone that, you know, Two of Swords really speaks to my energy a lot. I'm quite an indecisive person. I think I've been a person that's always worried, but okay, if I make a choice, what if it's the wrong choice, you know, which has left me, you know, in a lot of kind of states of, you know, unrest, you know, for a good part of my life. But I just really appreciated, you know, this card just giving me a sort of different kind of way of looking at it. You know, it ties in with the meaning, but again, it brings this a whole other layer. And the card in itself is even like, is comforting to me. Like hedgehogs, I love them. I can't believe they're, you know, native to my country. I've never seen one in real life. Like, actually, that upsets me. I need to find one. But yeah, you know, it speaks to that with the dandelions. You know, these are all things I find like in my garden and stuff, you know, where they become wishes and they go off. You know, they've made that choice to kind of put their seeds elsewhere. You know, that you can draw on the wisdom of the kind of crows, you can draw on that kind of wisdom of the hedgehogs. You know, it's something very visceral about this deck. It just speaks to me, the artwork, the meanings of the cards, the symbology, the system itself. You know, I have to work with it more, but just from what I've done so far and my own sort of going through this deck, as you can see, it's an order. It's fascinated me, it really has. And it's shown me perspectives of these cards that I've never actually contemplated before, or just given me a whole other layer to kind of understanding their messages and their counsel. And we could all do with that, right? We really, really could. I even like how the court cards are named different: messenger, craftsman, witch, goddess. You know, it's got that, it has that sort of goddess energy. You know, as you can tell, it's called the Witch's Wisdom Tarot. So, you know, how do we gain wisdom in life? It's through experience matched with solace, right? So you have these experiences, you take them on, and then in your solace, you contemplate, what do I gain from this? What can be gleaned from this? And this is where wisdom comes from, you know. This is where our sages, our shamans, our gurus, they've all lived life, you know, they've all understood, and they've took the time to contemplate. And this is what this deck is there for. You know, I don't think anyone should buy this and expect it to be a sharpshooter. I feel like maybe that's where people get disappointed, like potentially with this deck. That it's a lot to learn maybe, and it doesn't speak to what they know of in terms of those cards, and maybe it's too changed, which is fair enough. I completely understand, you know, that isn't for everyone 100%, but if you can sit with it, you get some very profound insights, I must say. You know, it's called Witch's Wisdom for a reason, guys. So if it's up your street, definitely give it a look. You know, it's a beautiful deck, and I can't sing its praises highly enough, even though it's relatively new to my collection. Like I said, it spoke to me even before I had it, so I guess it was meant to come my way. So guys, yeah, that's the Witch's Wisdom Tarot. Last but by no means least, I thought I'd include an oracle deck into this, because I've seen some beautiful, oh my god, some of you really showcase some beautiful oracle decks within this tag as well, like soul cards, oh my goodness, you know, the is it sacred geometry and stuff, beautiful decks. Oh gosh, you've got all the, see the added artwork here. But the reason I wanted to do this, because include an oracle deck, is one, this oracle deck is just, I find it very profound. I think it's a very beautiful deck. I think the imagery really does make you think. It does sort of fit into that aspect of those sort of, when I see those decks like soul cards, even like that, is it the Shimmering Veil Tarot? Oh god, I really want that deck. You know, these images that just evoke emotion within us, you know, want us to dive a bit deeper, can be quite confronting, and that aren't really attached to any system per se, but it's more about how are they speaking to you, you know, because shadow work, you know, spiritual kind of inner work, all of that is a very personal thing to each of us. Each of our journeys is separate. Each of our journeys, separate's not the right word, each of our journeys, you know, are individual to ourselves, you know, as much as we are connected. You know, what we have to go through, you know, what our dharma is, what our karma is, you know, it's all individual to ourselves. And so sometimes when we have a deck, like an oracle deck, that's just a bit more free-flowing in that sense, a bit more open, that can be kind of daunting for some of us, particularly some of us that like systems. I'm talking a lot to earth signs here when I say this, that like that sort of, okay, this is what it's here for, this is what's going to help me do, there's some sort of linear kind of pathway to this, and the structure to this. You know, sometimes we need to go free for all, you know, just embrace that kind of, you know, Aquarian, Piscean energy, I want to say. So and this deck, I just think is very good. I feel like it was actually accomplished by this artist. Accomplished? What a strange word to pick, Ree. What a strange word. It was created by Trisha Murray, the artist, while she was going through, I feel like something like a dark night of the soul. Definitely some sort of quite testing time in her life of change. And these sort of images, it does have its own suits, by the way, and I kind of may get into that, but first of all I just want to show you the images so you can get a bit of a taste for it. And it's all these charcoal images, you know, everything's drawn with charcoal, hence the forest of precious twigs, which I found so beautiful. I work with charcoal as well, and my god, it's messy work, what can I say, it really is, but there is something about art that is made from that, you know, it's like burnt twig, literally, like petrified, and we can create these images, and people from, you know, ancient times have been doing the same for years and years over, and here we are creating our own stories, and that's what she's done here. But it's her own journey, but it's so reflective of, you know, what a lot of us have gone through. Potentially if we've gone through depression, if we've gone through that dark night of the soul, like an awakening of some sort, having to confront our demons, you know, this is something all of us, if we're brave enough or courageous enough to do in life, you know, we'll probably end up doing, you know, and it will be for our better good. So to have tools, you know, that remind us, you know what, we're not the only one that's been through this, which I think is beautiful, but to actually help us with our own fascinates me. It's just been invaluable. there's so many different energies within these cards. You know, there's some lighter cards that really make you feel like a bit more hugged, which are in the suit towards the end of her journey. I think that they're split up into 4 suits basically, as far as I'm aware. And you know, that's to do with, you know, different aspects of her journey. So there's the immersion suit, the awareness, movement and growth. And I feel like it just, if for me, I have to be like in a decent place to sit down with this deck. I have to be honest. I don't think this is one deck I can pull out when I'm really in the thick of it, if I'm being really honest. But when I'm a bit calmer and I'm like, you know what, there's some things I really do need to address, or there's some like emotions that are like you know, need to come up, and I need to do some work on that, this is a very good deck. You know, I can literally just pull one card and sit with it. You can see this figure here just really faintly, like in the dark. And on the back, which is where this becomes, again, it's not just a wholly intuitive deck just through imagery. We have like a passage. So here, 18, that's my favorite number actually, lucky number, here we go. After floating down into the darkness, my feet finally touch the ground. I begin to feel which way is which and see what needs to be seen. There, tucked away in the shadows, is the gem that I am looking for. You know, just little passages like that of her own journey, but that speak to a lot of our journeys. And this immersion for me always reminds me of that sort of, you know, really surrendering to these emotions that we might be going through, you know, to kind of not fight them and go within and actually, you know, find what we need out of that darkness, having that courage to do so. So it's almost like, as much as it's a deep dive deck in terms of, you know, this is a confronting card for me, these figures. I don't like figures without faces, dark figures coming out of the ocean, like kind of grudge-like figures, like, and I can't see them clearly. You know, that is confronting to me, because it is like looking at your own shadows. But, excuse the helicopter, I feel like, I don't know what's going on around my house recently, but I don't know if there's like police helicopters just doing their sort of training or something around here, or hell, crime's gone up, who knows. But I digress. Yeah, the images are confronting, but the passages on the back, like they help ground you, and that's what I like about this deck. So it does give you a little bit of a helping hand, you know, as well, because it's a shadow work deck. 100% it's a shadow work deck. There's no other way of looking at it. And it's gonna confront you. That's what you want from it. But the aim is to surrender to that and, you know, gain some insight so we can move forward. You know, movement and growth are the 2 ending suits of this deck, you know. Here, awareness here as well. So it's all about the journey, about helping us with our journey by diving into this artist journey, I guess. And I appreciate that. I really, really do. Some of the cards are weird, wonderful, confronting, scary. Some of them have nice energy about them. You get a kind of some lighter colours coming through. Some of them are very like, this one I don't like. It's like this abandoned child, where it makes you look at that aspect of yourself, you know. It just has a lot to offer. And really and truthfully, I don't know how long this video is going to be. This salt crystal lamp is going to melt by the time I finish rambling on. But it's deep diving, so I'm trying to dive deep with these decks with you, so forgive me that. But yeah, this deck, what can I say about it? Forest of Precious Twigs is an indie deck. You can find it on Etsy. I'm fairly sure it's a Scottish creator, or at least someone that's based in Scotland. I'm fairly sure that's where it came from. So, you know, if you're within the kind of UK and you want to kind of support some local kind of creators and artists, go ahead. If this really if this speaks to you, please do. She has another one, I think, called The Wee Little Star. Yeah, she's got to be Scottish, right? I've got Scottish family. My auntie says that. Yeah. So, and even if you're stateside or Canada or wherever in the world you may be, and you can deal with shipping costs, definitely give it a go, because I feel like it's very good for shadow work. It really is. And I don't think I've sung its praises enough, nor talked it, you know, kind of done it justice by how I've been speaking about it. But I hope you get the gist, and I hope you just get a kind of feel for it in terms of the imagery there. So yeah, that's my last deep diver, guys. So guys, there were my 5 deep divers, you know, my top 5 deep divers. What can I say? It was a really interesting exercise. Thanks again to Max Black for creating this tag. It was really good to look through my collection and kind of see like what kind of purposes a lot of my decks served, you know, and actually give them their props for that, you know. It actually got me a bit more in touch with some of my decks, so you know, I'm grateful for that. There was more that I actually feel like I could have included in this, but I thought, you know, I'll stick to the 5, you know, stick to the ones that tried and true and definitely have spoke to me the most in recent times, and you know, kind of historically also. So yeah guys, definitely jump on this tag if you haven't already. I'll be really interested to see what your top 5 deep divers are. I've had a lot of enjoyment looking through this tag as it is, so be nice to see some different decks. I've definitely found some gems that I've never even seen before through this tag, so that's cool, and maybe I've introduced you guys to some too. I don't know about that, but potentially. So yeah guys, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, you know, feel free to subscribe and join the Treehouse. Why not? We've reinforced we've reinforced it by now, so you know, no health and safety regs, you know, we're going to be cool. No one's going to drop out the tree like a, you know, a baby bird and crack their head open. It should all be fine. So yeah guys, thanks for watching, and let me know your top 5. If you don't have a YouTube channel, just, you know, put in the comments. I'm really interested to see what you guys have, you know, in your arsenals. So yeah, I'll catch you next time. Bye.